Today our topic is about the management and public health importance of HIV/AIDS. Okay, so what is HIV/AIDS? As we all know, it is caused by the human immunodeficiency virus. It is a retrovirus, right? So it has an RNA. Okay, it is an RNA in the center, and it is surrounded by a capsid with glycoprotein 120, lipid fatty layer, and etc. and other marker proteins that are there on the surface. Okay, so we know that by HIV or human T lymphotropic virus T, it was known previously like that. Now it is known as human immunodeficiency virus types 1 and 2. So the virus replicates in actively dividing the T4 helper cells in our body and uniquely destroys them. It is found in greatest concentration in where? In blood, semen and CSF. It is found in other bodily fluids as well, but in greatest concentration in blood, semen and CSF. Lower concentration detected in tears, saliva, breast milk, urine, cervical and vaginal secretions as well. So who is the host of AIDS? এখন agent host environment এর আমরা যদি পড়ি, so what is the host of AIDS? Mostly it is humans prevalent in the reproductive age groups of 20 to 49 years. Gender, it depends on the region, means gender distribution, male এ হবে বেশি না female এ হবে বেশি, that depends on the region. In North America, Europe, Australia, it is mostly men, and in Africa the sex ratio is usually equal. What are the high risk groups who can host AIDS? They are the people having multiple sexual partners, who are having anal intercourse, men having sex with men, that is MSM, sex workers, intravenous drug abusers, transfusion recipients of blood and blood products, hemophiliacs and clients of STD having increased risk. Okay, whoever is having any injectables, blood transfusion or drug injectables, or having this vulnerable sexual groups like having multiple sexual partners, who are having anal intercourse, MSM and sex workers. Okay, they are having the high risk of this contracting the HIV virus and then consequently having the AIDS disease later. So what are the modes of transmission? Now we come to the modes of transmission. There are mainly 3 modes of transmission of HIV/AIDS. That is unprotected sexual intercourse with an infected partner, vertical transmission. What is vertical transmission? It means it is transmitting from the mother to the child, and it can happen in utero, it can happen during delivery, or it can happen while breastfeeding as well. And finally, the injectable drug users or the blood transfusion, whoever is having that, they have a chance of contracting this HIV virus, that is injection of drug use. Rare infected blood products, because nowadays blood products are filtered. They are whoever is giving the blood, their history is being taken, their test is done beforehand. So nowadays the blood transfusion, contraction through blood transfusion risk is minimized, but if that blood is infected with HIV, then there is a highest risk of transmission actually. But since nowadays it is filtered very much, that is why the risk of contracting through that blood transfusion products is less. Otherwise, injectable drug users, that is people who are sharing the same needle while taking the drug, they have a chance of contracting HIV. So here you can see the estimated HIV transmission. The highest risk of transmission of HIV is through the blood and blood products, then through the needle sharing, then occupational needle stick injury, that is when you go to the workforce, the healthcare workforce, then occupational needle stick injury hazard can happen. If that needle stick injury is from an HIV positive person, there is a chance that you can contract HIV. So those needle stick injury HIV contraction are very high compared to the HIV contraction through unprotected sexual intercourse. It is happening frequently through the unprotected sexual intercourse, but the chance of contracting HIV through it is actually the minimal, the most minimal chance of contracting HIV through that method. Otherwise, vertical transmission, transfusion through blood and blood products, injectable drug users, unprotected, occupational needle stick injury, these are more chances of contracting HIV. Okay, otherwise the rest are very minimal. So the incubation period, how does HIV cause the disease? The HIV is the name of the virus, right? But just having the HIV inside the body, infection in the body, does not mean that you have AIDS. So what is the incubation period? the agent infects the host, okay, then it becomes an asymptomatic carrier, but it is communicable, means the person can transmit to another person if those modes of transmission are there. But the patient themselves may be asymptomatic for like 8 to 10 years. So at this point they are silent because of reluctance or inability to test or inform partner. Okay, at that time the patient herself or himself doesn't know that that person is having HIV because they do not have any symptoms. So they are silent carriers kind of. So that is asymptomatic but communicable 8 to 10 years, that is the incubation period. And after that, if they are having, after that also they can remain asymptomatic, but some percentage of patients, they develop the disease of AIDS. So then they become infected and they develop the disease. That is, a diseased person happens much later. So who will develop the clinical disease remains uncertain. Possibly 10 to 30% will develop AIDS. Another 25 to 30% will develop AIDS related complex. Okay, AIDS related complex means the disease that is happening, disease that is happening around AIDS, because AIDS what it does, it lowers your immunity. So many what disease, opportunistic infections can happen through this AIDS disease. So this complex, the disease and the AIDS complex, that is the AIDS related complex, that can also happen in 25 to 30% of the patients. However, it is estimated that 75% of those infected with HIV will develop AIDS at the end of the 10 years. Okay, it is estimated, but so many people do not have. So that is why we are focusing on the target or vulnerable or the risk groups, because if 1 or 2% are having AIDS, that means that mainly more people, like three times more people are having the HIV infection. So those risk groups need to be tested so that the transmission stops, so that they can be started on early treatment. There this part of screening comes in. So high risk group screening is very important in this HIV. Okay, because not all people who are having HIV infection will develop AIDS. So how to then stop the transmission? We have to screen those high risk groups, right? So what is the case definition of AIDS? For AIDS surveillance, because from a public health perspective, what we are doing, we are trying to control the transmission of the AIDS or the HIV infection. So we have to do a surveillance. So how to do a surveillance? First we have to fix the definition of the case, that is the AIDS. So what is that? An adult or an adolescent that is more than 12 years of age is considered to have AIDS if at least 2 of the following major signs are present in combination with at least one of the minor signs. This is written in your book. So I am just telling that it is at least 2 major signs with 1 minor sign. What are the major signs and the minor signs? Major signs are weight loss more than 10% of the body weight, chronic diarrhea for more than 1 month, and prolonged fever for more than 1 month, intermittent or constant. If the person is having those 2 of those major signs plus 1 minor sign, that is persistent cough for more than 1 month. What is persistent cough? Persistent cough more than 1 month. If TB is present in that person also, if TB is present, then persistent cough more than 1 month is not considered a minor sign here. That is becoming kind of a major sign. But if the TB is not present, then minor sign hai ki aaj persistent cough for more than 1 month, generalized pleuritic dermatitis, herpes zoster, oropharyngeal candidiasis, then HSV infection, generalized lymphadenopathy. The presence of either generalized Kaposi sarcoma or cryptococcal meningitis is also sufficient to classify the person as having AIDS, because these are very opportunistic infections, Kaposi sarcoma, cryptococcal meningitis, that can happen usually only with AIDS, that is the AIDS related complex. Okay, so presence of those diseases also, if that disease is detected in that person, means that the person most probably have AIDS. In the AIDS surveillance, you can classify that patient as having AIDS. Okay, so this is the major signs and the minor signs. So 2 of the major signs plus 1 of the minor signs can be, if those signs are there in the patient, then you can classify them as AIDS or positive case or the HIV positive case during HIV surveillance. Then there is another WHO case definition. That was the previous was for the AIDS surveillance for public health. Like in India, if the government is finding some case, then that is the definition you use. Now WHO has expanded that case definition, taking all those other factors and then made a case definition for the purposes of AIDS surveillance. They are considered of having AIDS if a test for the HIV antibody gives a positive result. Now, if we include the laboratory test as well, if the person is testing HIV positive and one or more of the following conditions are present, then they are considered as AIDS positive case. That is more than 10% of body weight or cachexia or diarrhea or fever for at least 1 month. Okay, then not known to be due to a condition unrelated to HIV infection. Means HIV infection unrelated to HIV infection, for example TB. So if those things like weight loss, diarrhea, these are not occurring due to TB, then if it is occurring due to some unknown cause, then we can consider it as a major sign here. Then again there is cryptococcal meningitis, then pulmonary extrapulmonary TB, Kaposi's sarcoma, neurological impairment, candidiasis of the esophagus, okay, then recurrent pneumonia, invasive cervical cancer, any sign or symptom that is present from this list plus the laboratory test for HIV becomes positive. So that is a person is then HIV positive case in the AIDS surveillance according to the WHO expanded case definition. So these are the two case definitions of AIDS, but if you write only this in your exam, that is also considered correct. You do not have to write both. If you know both, you can write both, very good. If you can only write this one, then that is also correct. Okay. Now what are the clinical staging? We know that AIDS, as we saw in the incubation period, once a person contracts the disease, there is an incubation period 8 to 10 years, then the person develops the disease. So what are the stages of this disease? Again, there are two types of staging like case definitions. There is the symptomatic staging, you can say, initial infection, then asymptomatic carrier, AIDS-related complex, then AIDS. And another one is WHO clinical staging. So first let's go through this first one. As we can see that during the infection, acute infection, you can see that the HIV viral load is very less. Okay, HIV viral load is very less. Then it increases, the HIV viral load increases, HIV multiplies, it infects the host cells and then multiplies. And then there is the asymptomatic phase, that is when the person is essentially a carrier. They can infect other person, but they are not infective, they are not having any symptoms themselves. So acute infection following exposure, HIV replication and increases viral load. And then in the asymptomatic phase, what happens is there is continuous clearance of the abundant infected cells. So the infected cells are cleared and the CD4 T cells are depleted because they are attacking mainly the CD4 T cells and the CD4 T cells are being destroyed. So our immunity is also being lowered. Okay, it typically advances if AIDS is untreated. So this is the asymptomatic phase. So during this asymptomatic phase, what happens is there is weight loss. Now the person is having this asymptomatic phase, but the infection has started. No. So what happens? Small features are there, like there is weight loss, but the weight loss is not very significant. The weight loss is less than 10% of the body weight. Then there is minor mucocutaneous infections like some dermatitis, some pruritus, some fungal nail infections, some angular cheilitis. Those happen regularly in many other person as well. So you cannot like detect them as okay, they are having some serious HIV related infections. These are very common infections, but these can occur during this asymptomatic phase. Okay, then there can be herpes zoster. Herpes zoster infection can be there. Okay, there is recurrent upper respiratory tract infections. Okay, recurrent pneumonia and other things. There is sinusitis. Pneumonia is lower respiratory tract, but upper respiratory tract infection is also there, like bacterial sinusitis. But this is a very limited case definition. There is not something that is limited to this only, that only this will happen. Many other cases can also happen that will seem unrelated to HIV, but when you test them for laboratory investigations, what happens is you will find them positive for HIV. So then you will understand they are in that early stage of the HIV infection. So then becomes the AIDS related complex. So what is this? The first two we are seeing the initial infection is there, then there is the asymptomatic carrier, then comes the AIDS related complex. So what is AIDS related complex? Age-related complex is now the symptoms have increased. What happens? One or more of the following clinical signs. There is unexplained diarrhea, fatigue, malaise, loss of weight more than 10% of the body weight, fever, night sweats, other then opportunistic infections are also there. Okay, such as oral thrush, generalized lymphadenopathy, enlarged spleen. Patients from high risk groups who have two or more of these manifestations, they are having this age-related complex. So those who have a decreased number of T helper lymphocytes are considered to have age-related complex as well. So you test them for HIV virus, they will test positive. You test them for CD4 count, that CD4 count will lower, and then they will have all these symptoms. So that person is then defined as an age-related complex disease. So this chart is also there in your book. Okay, this chart is also there in your book. It is showing that the CD4 count, once it decreases, once the CD4 count is decreasing with time, what happens is very severe opportunistic infections are there. When the CD4 count is a little higher, at that time bacterial infection, TB, herpes simplex, herpes zoster, all these Kaposi sarcoma can be there. But as CD4 count decreases, what are the diseases that are happening? There are pneumocystosis, then toxoplasmosis, cryptococcosis, coccidiomycosis, cryptosporidiosis. And again, when the CD4 count is around less than 50, what happens? There is disseminated MAC infection, histoplasmosis, CMV retinitis, CNS lymphoma. So very, very severe infections start happening when the CD4 count becomes low. Okay, when the immunity lowers, very severe infections, opportunistic infections are happening. So these are all opportunistic infections that are happening at first to the age-related complex around here, and when the CD4 count is absolutely very low, then the person is having only severe infections as well. So these infections are happening when the person has full-blown AIDS. Okay, so this is the stage that is happening during the AIDS. So that at that time the viral load is increasing and the CD4 count has decreased also. So now that we have seen through the stages of AIDS, at this time, according to the public health importance, what is there, we have to understand that where the HIV is present in the community, that we have to understand. So how to do that? We have to first define what are the HIV epidemics. What are the HIV epidemics? Whether there is any endemicity of the HIV or not, whether there is any outbreak of HIV or not, so you have to determine that thing. Okay, so what is the low level HIV epidemic? It is the prevalence which has not spread to more than 5% in any subpopulation. Low level epidemic we are defining when in a community more than 5% of the people are not having this HIV. Okay, it is confined to higher risk behavior groups only. It is only confined to high risk behavior groups like sex workers, drug users, MSM. In this risk factor groups only, the disease is limited. The disease has not spread to the general population. So in those cases, we are saying that it is a low level epidemic. Then there is the concentrated epidemic. Prevalence consistently more than 5% of a subpopulation, but less than 1% among the pregnant women in the urban area. Now, where did this pregnant woman come from? Pregnant woman is actually taken as a proxy for the general population while seeing the prevalence of any disease. Why? Because pregnant women are routinely screened for this viral antigen. So we test them obviously. So through their level of any infection, we are able to understand what level of infection in the general population as well. So we are taking them as a proxy. So if the prevalence of the disease is consistently more than 5% in a subpopulation, but less than 1% in a pregnant woman in urban area, then it is said to be a concentrated level of epidemic. But if it is firmly re-established in the general population and more than 1% of the pregnant women in that area are having this infection, that means that the level of epidemic is a generalized epidemic. Now the epidemic is generalized. It is a high level epidemic. Okay. So these are the three types of HIV epidemics that can happen in the community. Okay. So now there are certain terms that is associated with HIV in the public health terms that you need to know, like PLHIV, that is people living with HIV. PLHIV. Okay. So people living with HIV means both incidence and prevalence of the disease are taken. So the new cases and old cases. Okay. So the PLHIV is people living with HIV. As you can see, people living with HIV in 2019, there were 38 million people. Now these are all stats that is there. If you can write, if epidemiologist asked in your question, you can write this. Otherwise, it is not that much necessary. This is just to show you the burden of the disease in the community. And in 2019, there were so many people living with HIV, estimated kind of, okay. And about 81% of these people knew their HIV status. Not all people knew their HIV status. 81% of the people who were having HIV knew their HIV status, and about 7.1 million people did not know that they were living with HIV. And then 1.7 million people become newly infected in HIV in 2019 because of those transmission modes. Okay, the burden of the people that was last seen in 2019. As you can see that in HIV/AIDS in India, there was a peak during 97-98, and then it has decreased. It is still decreasing right now, but the burden of the disease is still high. Then there is the incidence and AIDS-related deaths. As you can see, the AIDS-related deaths have reduced by 60% since its peak around that time. But again, in 2019, around 7 lakh people are dying. Okay, they are dying. But it is decreased. AIDS-related mortality has declined by 39% since 2010. But still, the deaths are very high. In 2019, around 7 lakh people have died. So the death rate is very high. And again, other stats, as we know that in 81% of the people living with HIV knew their HIV status, and among people who knew the status, 82% were accessing treatment, and among those people accessing treatment, 88% were virally suppressed, means those treatment was working. So why are we reading these 3 points? How many people knew their HIV status, how many people were taking treatment, how many people were having a good treatment, why are we seeing that? Because that is the target of the program. So the HIV testing, as you can see, the HIV testing and treatment cascade, that is this problem. Firstly, we have to close this gap. That is people living with HIV who know the status 81%. Okay, then among them 88% are having treatment. So overall 67% are having treatment. And among them 80% are having their successful treatment. So overall only 59% are having a successful treatment. So now, so that means that out of all the people who are living with HIV, only 60% are having a successful treatment. Less 40% are not having that treatment. They are not having their viral load suppressed. So we have to close that gap. We have to reach those other 40% as well. So we have to target this treatment for all. Okay, this is the 90-90-90 HIV treatment. This can come as a short note as well. 90-90-90 HIV treatment. Okay, so what is our goal? Our goal is 90% people should be aware of their HIV status. Among them 90% should be on HIV treatment, and among them 90% should have their viral load suppressed. So this is the target that we have to reach. Okay, this is the target that we have to reach. So this is the 90-90-90 treatment for HIV that can come as a short note in your exam. Understood this point? Okay. So this TB HIV co-infection. Now TB HIV co-infection is also a very important topic that can come as a short note. Why? Because when a person is having HIV, they are most likely to have a TB as well. So you will see that people who are having TB, who are having ATD treatment, they are also tested for HIV. Conversely, people who are having HIV, they are also tested for TB, because this co-infection is very common in India. So why? Because TB is a leading cause of death among people living with HIV. So if there are HIV infected people, the most common cause of death among them is due to TB infection. So in 2018, estimated 10 million people developed TB disease, approximately 9% of whom were living with HIV. And here it is estimated that 44% of the people living with HIV and TB are unaware of their co-infection and are therefore not receiving care. So this is a very important public health problem. So when treating with people with HIV and tuberculosis, at first what we have to do, we have to start ATT first. That is the anti-tubercular treatment should be started first, followed by ART as soon as possible, ideally within 2 weeks to 2 months. Isoniazid preventive therapy and ART given together can reduce the risk of TB among LHIV up by up to 97%. Means, firstly, if that person is co-infected with TB and HIV, we have to first start the treatment, then we have to follow it within 2 months with HIV treatment as well. So TB treatment, what it does, what will happen if you first give the ART? If you first give the ART, okay, what happens is the TB will spread more. Once you remove the viral load, the TB will spread more. So you have to first control the TB infection and then you give the ART so that the ART will work better. Okay. But if the person is not having TB and is just having HIV, so that apart from the ART, what you can give them an isoniazid preventive therapy so that they do not develop TB in the future. So that in that way you can prevent TB among people living with HIV. That is one way you can stop this co-infection. And other than that, if the person already has co-infection, then you give them the treatment for both. Starting with ATT, then you give them ART. Understood? Okay. So then estimated adult HIV prevalence trend has been declining in India since the epidemic's peak and has been stabilizing. And now 2019, the estimate of TB burden is HIV burden is 0.22%, that is 0.24% among adult males and 0.20% for females. Okay. So this is the current population trend of this HIV in India. Okay. I will start with this diagnosis and treatment of HIV/AIDS today. Complete how much I can. Next day we will mainly focus on the small part of the NACO, right? The program, the NACO part, and then the adolescent health as well. So I'll try to finish as much as I can about this. So what is the diagnosis and treatment of this HIV/AIDS? So firstly we have to do some diagnostic test. The person is having any symptom. So there are some serological tests for detection of an antibody like rapid tests, ELISA, Western blot, and then there is the antigen detection methods. Okay, the rapid antigen detection test, that is the P24 antigen capture test, and then there is the PCR test. And then after this, the adjuvant some tests are this absolute CD4 lymphocyte count. It is most widely used as a predictor for HIV progression. Not as a diagnostic test per se, but how much the disease has progressed. What is the stage of the disease that the person is in. So risk of progression to an AIDS opportunistic infection or malignancy is high with CD4 less than 200. So if the CD4 count becomes less than 200 means the risk of transmission or the risk of infection or the disease progression has increased in this person. So what we do, first there is a HIV diagnosis. All those tests are done very serially, one after another, not parallelly. It is done serially. So one after other means first the blood sample is taken, first test is done. If it is reactive, then only the second test is done. Then to decrease the false positive results. Then again another third test can be done if the two tests are contradicting. And then finally whatever the result is there, it is taken as interpretation positive. But if only one test is positive only, then the person is usually taken as a HIV positive result. Okay, among all those tests. So this rapid test, ELISA, Western blot, among this, which do you think is the confirmatory test of HIV? Any idea? The ultimate confirmatory test of HIV. Konta confirmatory test of HIV? Western blot, very good. Western blot test is the ultimate confirmatory test for HIV/AIDS infection. Tale control of AIDS ki ache? 4 basic methods. There are 4 methods of control of AIDS. Okay, prevention ache, treatment ache, etc., etc. So we will start with the prevention. How to prevent AIDS? Okay, we will educate the person, education for high risk groups. The high risk groups that are there, which are vulnerable to HIV infection, we have to provide education to them. Then combination HIV prevention, that is we can offer them combination for combination among different methods of prevention, like providing male and female condoms, needle and syringe programs, opioid substitution therapy with methadone and buprenorphine, then voluntary medical male circumcision. So all these techniques and schemes, we can combine them and provide those to those high risk groups as well. Then prevention of bloodborne HIV transmission by screening the blood products for HIV 1 and 2 virus, okay, before transfusion. The transmission of infection to hemophilias can be reduced by introducing heat treatment of factors 8 and 9. So these methods can be used. Again, prevention of HIV, external internal condoms, penile circumcision, PrEP, these drugs, pre-exposure prophylaxis drugs, post-exposure prophylaxis drugs can be given. Use of sterile needles and syringes, C-sections for HIV positive parents, not breastfeeding if HIV positive. So again, in this case in India, what is happened, if the mother is HIV positive, we usually do not tell her to breastfeed her baby. This is one of the rare occasions where we advise against breastfeeding the baby. Okay, in HIV positive mothers, we advise the mother to not breastfeed the baby. This is one of those rare cases. So where do this advice, where do all these services, this advice is provided from? There are certain treatment centers called ICTC. What is ICTC? Pado? ICTC is Integrated Counseling and Testing Center. Right? So Integrated Counseling and Testing Center means the person is going there for screening or testing or diagnosis, whatever. They are going there, they are having their test. Then the test results can come positive or negative. If it comes negative, well and good, the person is then given the result and they are counseled how to prevent HIV infection. If they are having positive result, then they are counseled about next steps, how to take treatment, where to take treatment, what services they can take, what are the next steps, how to prevent the transmission of HIV to their family members or the person near them. And all these are happening in privacy, so that the person's result, the HIV result, are not leaked to outside. Okay. So it is the early detection, opportunity screening of HIV and STIs. It is a ICTC is a center. It is there in almost every hospital or any other standalone ICTC center. It is there to provide counseling and services for the HIV and STD infections. It is the provision of basic information like what are the modes of transmission, what is the level, what are the methods of prevention. So all this information is provided there to the clients there. Promoting behavioral change, results and counseling purely confidential. So what happens, there is reduction of fear and stigma, because there is stigma and taboo regarding this disease in the community. So that is why whatever is happening there, the person can go there, no one will know the results outside. Okay. Link with other HIV care. So from there, if the ART center is not there in that hospital, the ICTC center will refer them and link them to another treatment center so that they can avail their treatment from that other center. So that linking of the care is there in the ICTC center. Prevention and treatment services and creating an enabling environment and emotional support. So all these things are there in the ICTC centers, where the person can get the integrated management on their part for HIV and STDs. Okay. So this ICTC also can come as a short note. Right. So HIV, so what are this information that is provided in the ICTC center? HIV is spread through sharing needles, contaminated blood transfusion, organ transplant, mother to child transmission, unprotected sex. But some myths or misconceptions are there among the clients. So HIV is not spread through food, drink, utensils, clothes, insect bites, kissing, touching, share bed, bathroom. So doing all these things will not spread HIV, but only these 3-4 methods are the modes of transmission for HIV. So that information is provided to the patients or the clients there. Okay. So that is also provided in the ICTC center.